Did you know that a foot long is actually 11 inches? And they were sued over that. And they said
False
it's just, and
advertising.
they said it was just advertising name and it wasn't actually the measurement.
Fake.
Welcome back to another episode of Is Fitz Happy? I'm Luke.
And I'm Emma.
And this week we're discussing chapter 11, Chade's Tower.
Mm-hmm.
The epigraph of this chapter, though, is speaking about the Out Islanders and the Six Duchies kind of mixing. It's from an author called Braun Kenner from the Out Island Chronicles.
Yes. And this epigraph is sort of like a couple of the other ones, but especially for this, giving us the needed context for the chapter and letting us know what has happened with the relations between the Out Islanders and Six Duchies people as time has gone on without Fitz being aware.
Yeah.
But it does start, like you said, with their history, and that is that they've always shared blood and that they either are fighting or they're sharing relations. It's really back and forth, and it always has been.
Almost every family in the coastal duchies will acknowledge having a cousin in the Out Islands. All acknowledge that the folk of the coastal duchies are of those mingled bloodlines. It is well documented that the first rulers of the Farseer line were likely raiders from the Out Islands who came to raid and settled instead. It also then talks a little bit about the geography of the Out Islands and how they are so far out there. And yes, they have a lot of landmass in their scattered collection of islands, but a lot of that landmass is dominated by glaciers. So they only can live on the coasts, and there's not a lot of fertile, arable land to grow things there.
Right, which means even though they can live on the coast, they cannot amass big cities on the coast.
Right.
It's still all little tiny settlements, and they fight with each other just as fiercely as they fight with the Six Duchies people.
Mm-hmm. And it's rare that they come together in kind of a central government. Kebble Rawbread was one of those rare people who kind of banded everybody together for a bit, or at least from what we know, everyone together. It was,
yes.
As rereaders, we know that it was select people that they could bully and blackmail into it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they also talk about in the wake of Kebble Rawbread and the Red Ship War, and the result of that, what has happened outside in the Out Islands.
Right. And the result of that is that a group of people realized that it actually was important for them to get together for more reasons than just war. And so there's something called the Hurtgerd.
The Hetgerd.
The Hetgerd is formed, which is an alliance of Out Islander headmen, and it is an uneasy one. And this is all founded by Arkan Bloodblade. He's the first headman to point out to the others that the Hetgerd could be used to unified strength and normalize trade relations with the Six Duchies.
Yeah.
And this is important because we talk about it later, and it's really kind of glazed over. It's just like, oh, the Hurtgerd sent, a person, and Fitz is like, the Hurtgerd. And then Chade is just like, yeah, the Hurtgerd. Anyway. So I feel like it's important that we say now what the Hurtgerd is as a refresher.
Yeah, and it's also a reminder of people coming later into this narrative. Arkan Bloodblade is one of the Hetgerd, and he's not the one who founded the Hetgerd, but the first one to point out that relations should be made with the Six Duchies. So obviously, he is viewed as an important, noble person by the Six Duchies, and it's his daughter, or his niece, that is the Narcheska Eliana.
Yes. So he's important, but so is the Hurtgerd, which is a very fun word to say.
As always, Chade had planned well. His silent messenger seemed very familiar with his ways. Before noon the next day, we had changed our exhausted horses for two others at a decrepit farmhouse. And Fitz talks about how they're changing horses at multiple stations, taking boats across bodies of water, getting another pair of horses, and then getting into another boat. And all the while he's describing this, he realizes that they're not going by the quickest way back to Buckkeep, but the most discreet way, and one that somebody would least expect. So anybody watching the road to Buckkeep would be sorely disappointed because they're going around on a fishing boat at the end to pull into Buckkeep town docks.
Exactly. So it's really interesting sort of to get a timeline. I know before we've talked about, I wonder how long it takes to get to Buckkeep. And this doesn't give us very good information because it is the roundabout way, but it still does seem to take about 2 days.
He gets there, what, about afternoonish? And he leaves the night before and they ride throughout the whole night.
Yeah.
So yeah, probably about 2 days of easier travel.
Yeah. So that's really interesting to think about, which does let us know that there's not a lot of time in between when Fitz expects Hap to be following behind and arriving, right? Which is the important part. But
Yeah.
here we have sort of this espionage, it's like getting right back into being an assassin where everything's secretive. He doesn't see any money exchange hands. He's just going from ship to horse to ship to horse to horse to ship. And at the discretion of this guy that he's just trusting.
It is a funny little thing that you mentioned there, never seeing money exchange hands. The way it's written makes me feel like he could have seen it if he wanted to. The way it's described is, if coin was exchanged, I never saw it. It is always best not to see what is meant to be concealed. So it feels like to me he noticed something going on. He's like, oh, that's probably the money exchange, but purposely didn't want to know the details of it because it's like, well, he's secretive. I don't want to upset anything.
That's fair.
That's the way it read to me. It's just a funny little thing that stood out there.
But I do want to say I feel vindicated because the next paragraph, it starts with Buckkeep Castle is built on an inhospitable strip of coast. I just want to point that out for our friend.
Palace is what you were saying.
Sorry. I think castle and palace are synonymous. Fight me about it. I feel vindicated. It is described by the guy who grew up in it as a castle.
So we get a description of Buckkeep Castle and how it is standing atop cliffs, and Buckkeep Town is kind of attached to the cliffs below that. But how it is expanded now and how it is different. As a boy, I had thought the town had grown as large as it could, given its geography. But on the afternoon that we sailed into it, I saw that I had been wrong. Human ingenuity had prevailed over nature's harshness. Suspended pathways now vined across the face of the cliffs, and tiny houses and shops found purchase to cling there. The houses reminded me of mud swallows' nests, and I wondered what pounding they took during the winter storms. Pilings had been driven into the black sand and rock of the beaches, where I had once run and played with Molly and the other children. Warehouses and inns squatted on these perches, and at high tide, one could tie up right at their doorsteps. This our fishing boat did, and I followed my mute guide ashore onto a wooden walkway. So he describes how Buckkeep Town has really expanded, and in doing so, since there's not a lot of room to expand, it's kind of grown outwards and a bit downwards towards the shore and the beaches more so. So Buckkeep Town is just expanding along this cliffside.
Yeah, the way the cliffside areas are described really freaks me out, but I also have a fear of heights. So I would just hope that if I visited this town, I did not need to go to any of the stores that were hanging off the side of the cliff. But everything else sounds pretty cool, and it's interesting to know that they're sort of using the geography around them and making do with what they have, especially as Fitz then continues on to say one of the inns that they're going to is on the shore, and when the ocean is at high tide like it is now, you can use your boat and just go straight up to the door, which is what he and the man that he's traveling with do. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of cool, I think. That's like a fun little detail of an inn that you can get to by boat sometimes.
He's looking around Buckkeep Town here, and there's lively boat commerce, an increase in structures, and yet Fitz says he can take no joy in it. Here was the final evidence of my childhood erased. The place I had both dreaded and longed to return to was gone, swallowed by this thriving port. So he glances around for his guide, realizes that the guide has vanished, and understands that Chade probably instructed the guide to drop him here, and then that's all he was needed of him, because not everyone gets to see all the winding ways to Chade's tower.
Exactly. And this is something he's familiar with. And so he continues on and decides that if Chade wanted him there, super quickly after that, he would have sent another guide to lead him. And since that isn't the case, he's going to take a little bit of time wandering the town just to see what's changed firsthand. And he assumes that that was something planned to give him time to experience alone. And he does really enjoy that. I mean, he sees people that he recognizes just with aged up 10 to 14 years. And he knows that they don't see him at all because he's just this country bumpkin walking around. He's an outsider. And because of that, nobody notices him except for the kids that are hawking the
meat
pies
yeah.
that are the gravy with fish. And he does buy one, and it's the taste of Buckkeep. And he, gets to reminisce in that way. And he finds that there are still some of the places that he visited as a child in place where they were, but other things have changed too.
And every building that could have a second story has grown one.
Exactly. So it's really just this sort of changing landscape, and it's interesting to read from Fitz's perspective the changes of Buckkeep, because he does have such an emotional attachment, I think, to how it used to be. And it does really feel nostalgic to, I mean, I personally moved around a lot growing up. And so when I have gone back to places that I lived in as a child but haven't visited since, it is crazy how different it is. Like, you see the same place, but places change. Nothing stays the same all the time. And so this really I thought was well done, because it does have that weird uncanny valley of, oh yeah, that's where this happened, and now it's not that at all. And I don't know, I really liked it.
He walks past Molly's previous chandlery, where her father worked. It's now a tailor shop. He doesn't go inside, but instead goes to a tavern that they used to frequent. You can see that some of the tables still have the idle whittling and carving of Carrie's hands, one of his old friends. I believe that's one. Is Carrie the one of those that turned into a forged one?
Yeah, I think Carrie for sure died, but I don't remember if it was because he was forged or not.
Okay. I know that he had to do that at one point. And he sits down and drinks. He's listening to gossip here and waiting until nightfall because he knows he can't contact Chade until then. So he listens, and mostly he hears all the same. He can't really suss out anything that would have called him there from Chade's business side, so he knows that it's kept under wraps and not common knowledge anymore. But he does hear about the prince's betrothal, complaints about Bingtown's war with Chalced disrupting trade, and the local mutterings about the very strange weather. Out of a clear and peaceful night sky, lightning had struck an unused storage hut in the outer keep of the castle and blown the roof right off. I shook my head at the tale.
That is clearly something to do with Chade.
Some experiment, yes, but it's not the urgent news.
No. So there is this sort of like lulling quality of this part where he's sort of listening in and nothing seems dire. He's really confused and he can't find out more at this moment. And so he's sort of just going along with what's happening.
He knows he can't go into Buckkeep through the gate this time, but does recall that exit secret passageway that they used in Assassin's Quest, the final escape from there. Or maybe it was Royal Assassin right near the end.
Yeah, not sure.
That was the plan.
But there was a hole in the wall.
Yep, it is now patched. However, a golden aristocrat is sitting on a pillow, playing a penny whistle with consummate skill right in front of that patched wall. The fool.
It is the fool.
Fool, I greeted him fondly, and with no great surprise. He cocked his head and made a mouth at me. Beloved, he drawled in response. Then he grinned and sprang to his feet. I'm glad I brought that, indicating the cushion. I had a feeling you might linger a time in Buckkeep Town, but I didn't expect to wait this long. It's changed, I said lamely. Haven't we all, he replied. And then after a moment, he tidies himself up and is the picture of a aristocrat, a noble, a dandy, and says, pick that up. You are my servant.
Hurry along, we are expected. His air of petulant command mimed perfectly that of a foppish dandy of the noble class. He plucked a handkerchief from his sleeve and patted at his upper lip, erasing imaginary perspiration. I had to smile. He assumed the role so deftly and effortlessly. How are we going in? By the front gate, of course. Have no fear. I've put word about that. Lord Golden is very dissatisfied with the quality of servants he has found in Buckkeep Town. None have suited me, and so today I went to meet a ship bringing to me a fine fellow, if a bit rustic, recommended to me by my second cousin's first valet, by name, one Tom Badgerlock. So, he proceeded ahead of me. I picked up his cushion and followed. So I'm to be your servant? I asked in awry amusement. Of course, it's the perfect guise. So that's the plan, is that Fitz is going to be himself, more or less, because he has been living as Tom Badgerlock for a while. But he is going to be the servant of Lord Golden, who is very clearly already very fussy and very annoying, which Fool says is part of the ingenuity of it, that he can go wherever he needs to go as a servant and the nobility will not look at him. And so he won't be recognized by them, and the servants won't really have much time to talk to him because Lord Golden is so horrible and keeps him so busy, and so it won't be weird if he doesn't spend time with them.
I intend that you will be a downtrodden, overworked, poorly dressed lackey of a supercilious, overbearing, and insufferable young lord. You will have little time to socialize at all. And do not dare to meet my eyes, sirrah. I will tolerate no impertinence. Stand up straight. Keep your place and speak no word without my leave. Are you clear on these instructions? Perfectly, I grinned at him. He continued to glare at me. Then suddenly the glare was replaced by a look of exasperation. Fitz chivalry, the game is up if you cannot play this role and play it to the hilt. Not just when we stand in the great hall of Buckkeep, but every moment of every day when there is the remotest chance that we might be seen. I have been Lord Golden since I arrived, but I am still a newcomer to the Queen's court, and folk will stare. Chade and Queen Ketcherkin have done all they could to help me in this ruse. Chade because he perceived how useful I might be, and the Queen because she feels I truly deserve to be treated as a lord. So Fitz is sitting there like, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, it's so goofy and silly.
Slack-jawed, and the Fool's like, no, we're doing it right now.
Yes.
You have to do it right now.
Come on, Fitz, use that one brain cell. We're doing it. This is the act. Start it right now. And I mean, Beloved has a great point, right? You don't ever know when people are watching and when they're not, especially in an open space like they are. You might as well get used to just always doing it unless you know for a fact nobody could be watching. And so there is this sort of tug of war, but Fitz is just happy to see his friend and he's acting so goofy and really well. He's doing it perfectly. It's just kind of a silly game at this point. And so, you know, Fool has to sort of rein him in and say, no, it isn't really a game. And this is really interesting to Fitz because he can't believe nobody's recognized Fool.
Yeah, and they have a conversation about, from the Fool side, mostly being like, of course no one recognized me. It's been 15 years, and they're expecting black and white motley and me to caper around.
Right. And even if they do think I look vaguely like that boy, first of all, I don't look the right age if it had been that much time. Second of all, they're not going to ask this pompous Lord Golden if he happened to used to be a servant like 14 years ago. That would be unheard of. That's not couth.
And Fitz says, I knew you the moment I saw you, just as I knew you, and would know you when first I met you a dozen lives hence, but few others do. Chade with his assassin's eyes picked me out and arranged a private audience at which I made myself known to the Queen. A few others have given me curious glances from time to time, but again, this is where that excuse is no one would ask a noble if they were the Fool. How can they be so blind? He shook his hat and smiled at my ignorance. Fitz. They never even saw me in the first place. They saw only a jester and a freak. I deliberately took no name when at first I arrived here. To most of the lords and ladies of Buckkeep, I was just the fool. They heard my jokes and saw my capers, but they never really saw me. He gave a small sigh. Then he gave me a considering look. You made it a name. The Fool. And you saw me. You met my eyes when others looked aside, disconcerted. I saw the tip of his tongue for a second. Did you never guess how you frightened me? That all my ruses were useless against the eyes of a small boy? You were just a child yourself, I pointed out uneasily. He hesitated. I noticed he did not agree or disagree with me when he went on. Become my faithful servant, Fitz. Be Tom Badgerlock. Every second of every day that you are at Buckkeep is the only way that you can protect both of us, and the only guise in which you can aid Chade. And so they move in to Buckkeep.
Right. And at this, Fitz sort of asks, well, what does Chade want? And Fool says, I don't know, it's better he tells you. It's not really my place. Let's go. We're running late. And he mentions that, the sun is starting to set and times have changed, even here at Buckkeep Castle, where the guards might not let them in if it gets to be dark and they're going up to the castle. So they need to really get a move on.
So they were admitted without serious question at all. Fitz is still worried about it, of course, but no one's paying him any heed.
He also gets a little nostalgic when he sees the guard uniform and sees the buck and all of the, stuff that he grew up seeing. And he thinks it's really lucky that the Fool gives him the privacy by not looking back.
He has the kindness not to look back, not lucky.
Yeah, it was a kindness. But also I think it's part of the ruse. Why would the Fool, as Lord Golden, look back to check on his servant?
True.
But Fitz is like, oh, how kind.
So he notes that Buckkeep has changed as much as the town below it on the cliffs. Overall, the changes were ones I approved. There's a new and larger stable, there's paving stones where once muddy tracks had run, and although more folk thronged the castle than I recalled, it seemed cleaner and better maintained. I wonder if this was Ketcherkin's mountain discipline applied to the keep, or simply the result of peace in the land. All the years I had lived in Buckkeep had been years of the Out-Islander raids and eventually outright war.
That's also something that, until reading that part, I hadn't ever put a lot of thought into.
Yeah, he was raised in wartime.
Yeah, Fitz hadn't really known peace, literally. So I thought that was really interesting, just an interesting aspect of his youth and what he went through, that maybe it wouldn't have been so bad if it wasn't a time of war. And
yeah,
who knows?
But now it's a time of peace, and he notes that as he had gone into the harbor, he had even seen some Out-Islander ships tied up in the docks for trade. So
right. So things aren't as bad, and obviously some things have been smoothed over as well. And as they go in, continue into the castle, he notes that Lord Golden is stopped by two ladies, and in the most flabbergasting way, the Fool is flirting with them, and they're flirting with him, and they're very clearly very interested, and he is just playing this part so well, and it's kind of freaking Fitz out, because it really does seem like Fool is interested and he's doing all the right things, and he's, telling them that he wishes that he could stay, but, finding good servants these days is so hard, and he has to teach this one what to expect, and isn't that the worst? And it's so natural to Lord Golden to act this way, and Fitz is sort of just watching in awe.
So they're heading towards the west side of the keep, and that's where in King Shrewd's day there were less desirable chambers. However, it might have changed in this day and age because they have apartments over there, and when they go in, it is lavish beyond all belief. Fitz might even thinks that maybe the Fool kind of added some of his own wealth to decorate and kind of, pad the apartment a bit.
Yeah, and so it is a sort of weird moment. I'm trying to remember, do you know offhand, is the west part of the castle where the Out-Island lords met with him and told him they wanted him to be king?
The coastal duchies?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
I'm wondering if that's the case, which would be really interesting, but it probably wouldn't be this room.
It wouldn't be this room.
Anything, This is also something that I was wondering and probably should have looked up. I'm so sorry. But I'm wondering if this used to be Lady Time's room.
No, I don't think so.
There's just multiple rooms with access to Chade's quarters. Oh,
I think there's a lot of them.
interesting.
I seem to recall something about Lady Time's rooms, because she didn't live there all the time. I seem to recall them more like in the central area. I don't know why, but it's something from the first trilogy.
Okay.
With like Regal or something. I
I'll
don't
have
know.
to go in and look that up.
Yeah.
I don't know. But that was something that I was like, oh, is this Lady Time's room? That'd be cool.
I guess it could be. Yeah.
But also makes sense if it's not. So
Makes sense if it would be too, I suppose. Lord Golden had flung himself into a chair as I closed the door quietly behind us. A last slice of sunlight from the westering sun came in the tall window and fell across him as if by accident. He steepled his graceful hands before him and lolled his head back against the cushions, and suddenly I perceived the deliberate artifice of the chair's position and his pose. The entire rich room was a setting for his golden beauty. Every color chosen, every placement of furniture was done to achieve this end. In this place and time, he glowed in the honey light of the sunset. I lifted my eyes to consider the arrangement of the candles, the angles of the chairs. You take your place like a figure stepping into a carefully composed portrait, I observed quietly. He smiled, his obvious pleasure in the compliment a confirmation of my words.
So I mean, not to be that person, but I don't think of my friends as golden beauties that are like a painting, you know. Usually I reserve that thought for people that I find attractive. But hey, whatever, that's all I'll say about that.
He gets a little tour of the room and gets pointed out his bedroom. And it's a bare, like, square of a room. Just a bed.
There's not even a window.
Yep.
And Fitz is pretty disappointed, actually. He's like, oh, after seeing all that splendor, I get this.
And Lord Golden is like, Lord Golden is a shallow, venal fellow. He is witty and quick-tongued and very charming to his fellows, and completely unaware of those of lesser stations. So your chamber reflects that. He's also like, but there's also a very special thing. Yeah, there's no window or chairs
or a fireplace.
Or a fireplace.
But, you know, that is pointed out to Fitz as being normal for servants' quarters.
Mm-hmm.
He's just expecting his old room. That's not how normal people are treated.
But there's also a very special thing about this. And Fitz is like, I don't see it. So the fool goes in, closes the door. It's pitch black in there. And he feels along the wall and says, here, feel this, mark it off however you have to, press it. There's a little indentation on the stone or a little kind of knobbly piece that he pushes in very lightly. It clicks and a wall swings open. It's very dark in there, of course, and Fitz is like, couldn't we have done this with candles? And the fool's like, that would have taken too long.
And
fine.
Also, you need to know it by feel because there's no sight that could help you find this.
Mm-hmm.
So it was better this way.
Yep. So obviously Chade has oiled the wall because it used to be loud. The fool makes a little mention of that and says, okay, there you go. Have at it, Fitz, and leaves.
Yes, he says, this time you will be excused from your services for the night as you just arrived, and Lord Golden could say that he can't deal with somebody untrained first thing.
Yeah.
However, you are going to be expected to put up this ruse tomorrow. So whatever. By the way, I will leave a candle lit for you when you come back. Just know that you have to work tomorrow.
And welcome home, Fitz Chivalry Farseer. I turned to look back at him. Thank you, fool. We nodded to one another in oddly formal farewell, and I began to climb the stair. On the third stair, I heard a snick behind me and looked back. The door had closed. They're saying goodbye to their characters.
Yes.
Their personas, who they really are.
And up into the dark tower Fitz goes. And he mentions that there is some light ahead, but it doesn't seem like lamplight. And as he goes up this dark hallway, or I guess stairway because it's going up, he notices that there are arrow slits. And that's...
slits not even wide as arrow slits.
Yeah, and that's what's letting in the light. And so it's outside light, and he is losing it quickly. So he has to sort of get his bearing and try to figure out where to go to get to the chamber. Chade's chamber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's trying to picture the layout in his head and hesitantly takes a couple turns and eventually finds one of those holes in the wall that he can spy on rooms and situates himself based on what rooms he sees.
Right. He mentions, to be fair, he mentions that as he starts going along corridors, he is seeing the peepholes. He's just not looking in. It's not until he finds a disused stool that he sits down and looks, and he recognizes the room. It's the room that he would stand and tell King Shrewd what he saw or found and report to Shrewd in.
Yep, the private audience chamber. Having taken my bearings from this, I hastened on. At last, I saw a yellowish glow in the secret passageway far ahead of me. Hurrying toward it, I found a bend in the corridor and a fat candle burning in glass. Far down another stretch, I glimpsed a second candle. And so tiny lights kind of lead him on his way, and eventually he finds himself standing in a small stone room with a narrow door. The door swung open at my touch, and I found myself stepping out from behind the wine rack into Chade's tower room. I looked about the chamber with new eyes. It was uninhabited at the moment, but a small fire crackling on the hearth and a laden table told me I was indeed expected. The great bedstead was overladen with comforters, cushions, and furs as it had always been, yet an elaborate spiderweb constructed amidst the dusty hangings spoke of disuse. Chade used this room still, but he no longer slept here. I ventured down to the workroom end of the chamber, past the scroll-laden racks and the shelves of arcane equipment. Sometimes when one goes back to the scene of one's childhood, things seem smaller. What was mysterious and the sole province of adults suddenly seems commonplace and mundane when viewed with mature eyes. Such was not the case with Chade's workroom. The little pots carefully labeled in his decisive hand, the blackened kettles and stained pestles, the spilled herbs and the lingering odors still worked their spell on me. The wit and the skill were mine, but the strange chemistries that Chade practiced here was a magic I had never mastered. Here I was still an apprentice, knowing only the basics of my master's sophisticated lore. And then he notices something else. He says his travels had taught him some things, and he recognizes a shallow bowl with a towel covering it as a scrying basin that he had seen in Chalcedean towns from fortune tellers.
Right. He then goes on to mention that back in the day, one time, Chade had woken him from dead sleep to let him know that Red Ship Raiders had attacked and he needed to go. And at the time, he just thought it must have been some sort of skill message that was passed on to him.
Or a messenger bird.
And now he's not so sure.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to point that out as something I found odd, because I am 99.9% sure that at some point in the first 3 books, Chade tries to get Fitz to try scrying. Like, there's a whole thing about how Chade is teaching him about the circle of magic and trying to see if he might have any affinity for other magics, one of which specifically mentioned was scrying, and Fitz says he couldn't figure it out, but somehow Chade seemed to know what was in the water or whatever.
Well, as a kid, maybe going through that, you're thinking of yourself and not thinking, oh, my teacher knows how to do this, because he was getting tested for other magics. So maybe as a kid, he just didn't kind of make that connection, because in the first trilogy, he's writing his thoughts already settled down in the cabin, already having gone to Chelsea, so he could identify and talk about scrying bowls in the story, just fine. But as this seems to be almost told as like a current, what is happening now, rather than being written about. Maybe it's like now he's coming to the realization of,
maybe
Chade. Maybe Chade still uses it. Maybe it's like not just a thing he was trying to see if I could do.
I guess, I don't know. I just feel like part of that scene, Chade does see something with Fitz there or something. Maybe not. Maybe that part I'm adding on. It just felt like, to me, especially scrying was specifically mentioned, and then also, I feel as though it was mentioned that Chade said he could, or he said he saw something.
I don't know
either. It just was a thing that passed my mind, but it felt odd to me then to read this paragraph because I immediately recalled that part of the book. So I was like, oh, that's odd. That's weird. Why wouldn't he have thought that before? But hey, what do I know?
So as he's kind of musing about the room and looking about the room, his musings were cut short by the sound of a door closing softly. I turned to see Chade Fallstar standing near a scroll rack, and for the first time I noticed that there was actually no obvious doors out of this chamber. And here you are at last. When I saw Lord Golden enter the Great Hall smiling, I knew you would be awaiting me. Oh, Fitz, you have no idea how relieved I am to see you. I grinned at him. In all our years together, I can't recall a more ominous greeting from you. It's an ominous time, my boy. Come, sit down, eat. We've always reasoned best over food. I've so much to tell you, and you may as well hear it with a full belly. We have Chade entering the room now.
Yeah, and it's sort of another homecoming
Yeah.
to have the master and boy in the room, and they're going to eat together again and talk about what's wrong because Fitz truly doesn't know.
Yeah.
He needs to know what's going on, and he is very curious.
So Chade has him sit down, and they start eating, and Chade is going to prepare some tea, and he grabs a pot near the edge of the fire and pours some in his own cup, and Fitz is about to grab it too, and he's like, no, I'll put on more water. So obviously this is some sort of special brew of
Yes.
Chade's with his own concoction of herbs to keep him sharp and aware.
And Fitz watches him drink it and doesn't say anything.
Mm-hmm. Chade says, my messenger told you as much as he knew, which was nothing. One of my greatest tasks has been to keep this private. So where do I begin? It is hard to decide, for I don't know what precipitated this crisis. It says, tell me the heart of it, and we can work backward from there.
Can I just pause? They are eating this like beautiful spread of meats and cheese and bread
And pastries.
and pastries. And every time we get this description, I think it's mostly in this chamber where this happens, where there's just like a plate of food for you to make your own little thing. Every time I'm like, I want to eat that so bad. I want ham and bread right now, please. So
cheeses, pastries, cold meats, fruit that was fragrantly ripe, and spicy breads, and wine and brandy.
This is like my dream layout.
Dream meal.
Dream meal.
Just charcuterie board day after day.
Yes. Large scale charcuterie.
Yeah. Different every time.
Yes. Anyway, the more important details.
Yeah.
Fitz is sort of almost taking over the role of being in charge. He tells Chade, start from the beginning and I'll work out what we need to know. Just tell me the whole story.
Yeah. And
don't worry about it.
Chade says, okay, well, Prince Dutiful is missing, as he pour them both brandy. We think he might have run on his own. If he did, he likely had help. It is possible he was taken against his will, but neither the Queen nor I think that likely. There. It took me a moment to marshal my thoughts. How could it happen? Whom do you suspect? How long has he been gone? 6 days and 7 nights, counting tonight. I doubt he will reappear before morning, though nothing would please me better. How did it happen? Well, I do not criticize my queen, but her mountain ways are often difficult for me to accept. The prince has come and gone as he pleased from both castle and keep since he was 13. She seemed to think it best that he get to know his people on a common footing. There have been times when I thought that was wise, for it has made the folk fond of him. I myself have felt that it was time he had a guard of his own to accompany him, or at least a tutor of the well-muscled sort. But Ketcherkin, as you may recall, can be as unbending as stone. In that she had her way. He came and went as he wished, and the guards had their orders to let him do so. Fitz gets up to get himself tea because Chade keeps everything kind of the same place.
Right, and the water is boiled and
hears himself say, he could already be dead, and then could have bitten his tongue out as the stricken look on Chade's face. And finally Chade admits, he could. He's a hardy, healthy boy, unlikely to turn away from a challenge. This absence need not be a plot. An ordinary accident could be at the base of it. I thought of it. But
He sent
Nothing
out
came of
people
it.
and dogs discreetly and hasn't found anything.
Yeah, and he figures that the hunting cat would probably return if there was an accident or if he had died. In any case, unpleasant as the idea is, I have thought to look for a body, and none has been discovered. And Fitz lashes onto that. A hunting cat? I ignored my jabbing thought to ask, you said run away or possibly taken. What would make you think either one likely? So now he's running through different scenarios and trying to get to the heart of what Chade doesn't understand or what he doesn't needs help with,
Yeah.
basically.
Like, how am I supposed to find him?
Mm-hmm.
What is different about this?
So Chade is running through all these questions that Fitz has. Run away or possibly taken. The first, because he's a boy trying to learn to be a man in a court that makes neither easy for him. And the second, because he's a prince newly betrothed to a foreign princess and rumored to be possessed of the wit. That gives several factions any number of reasons to either control him or destroy him. I must have looked as sick as I felt, for Chade finally said softly, we think that even if he has been taken, he is most valuable to his kidnappers alive. So Fitz is obviously stunned by the news that he possibly could have the wit, or people suspect him of that.
Right. It's just kind of a scary thought. He's someone who has fully firsthand experienced what happens at that age if you're accused of having the wit and being royal blood.
And he asks Chade, is there anybody who has claimed him or demanded ransom? Answer is no to that. And Fitz is now cursing himself for not keeping abreast of the politics of the Six Duchies and keeping up on everything around and basically being an isolationist, because now it would become really in handy if he knew all the factions.
Right. If he knew who was struggling for power and who wanted more, who was content, what was going on. And he realizes that him refusing to know anything about the Six Duchies based off of not wanting to hurt anyone he loved.
And not becoming involved in it again.
Right.
Either.
It now seems a childish thing, like saying, I'm never going to get wet again after falling in the river. Like, it's not going to happen. You can't avoid it. You've just made yourself ill prepared for the next time. And so he's really upset with himself and finally asks a question that he has on his mind, which is, why do people accuse him of having the wit?
Because you were, Chade said shortly. I said nothing. Some secrets still belonged to me alone. At least, I hoped they did. You were witted, he resumed. Some say it must have come from your mother, whoever she was, and Ida, forgive me, I've encouraged that thinking. But others point back a time to the piebald prince and several other oddlings in the Farseer line to say, no, the taint is there, down in the roots, and Prince Dutiful is a shoot from that line. But the piebald prince died without issue. Dutiful is not of his line. What made folk think that the prince might be witted? Chade narrowed his eyes at me. Do you play cat and mouse with me, boy? He set his hands on the edge of the table. Veins and tendons stood up ropily on their backs as he leaned toward me to demand, do you think I'm losing my faculties, Fitz? Because I can assure you I'm not. I may be getting old, boy, but I'm as acute as ever. I promise you that. Until that moment, I had not doubted it. This outburst was so uncharacteristic of Chade that I found myself leaning back in my chair and regarding him with apprehension. He must have interpreted the look in my eyes, for he sat back in his chair as well and dropped his hands into his lap. When he spoke again, it was my mentor of old that I heard. Starling told you of the minstrel at Springfest. You know of the unrest in the land among the witted, yes, and you know of those who call themselves the piebalds. There is an unkinder name for them. The cult of the bastard. He gave me a baleful look, but gave me no time to absorb that information. He waved a hand, dismissing my shock. Whatever they call themselves, they have recently taken up a new weapon. They expose families tainted by the wit. I do not know if they seek to prove how widespread the wit is, or if their aim is the destruction of their fellows who will not ally with them. Posts appear in public places. Gear the tanner's son is witted, his beast is a yellow hound. Lady Winsome is witted, her beast is her Merlin. Each post is signed with their emblem, a piebald horse. Who is witted and who is not has become court gossip these days. Some deny the rumors, others flee, to country estates if they are landed, to a distant village and a new name if they are not. If those posts are true, there are far more who possess the beast magic than even you might suppose. Or, and he cocked his head at me, do you know far more of all this than I do? No, I replied mildly, I do not. Nor was I aware how completely Starling reported to you. I've offended you. No, it's not that, it's that... Damn me, I've become a testy old man despite all I've done to avoid it, and I offend you and you lie to me about it, and when only you can aid me, I drive you away from me. My judgment fails me just when I need it most. We have a really interesting scene here, and the next conversation as well, but I'll take a small break to discuss the Piebald's new strategy.
Yes.
How they're revealing witted folk. And this is very, very reminiscent of the Out Islands and how everyone was gathered under Kebble Rawbread. It's just like, hey, we're going to take your family and forge them, and then going to reveal to everybody if you don't join us.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely this sort of fear-mongering tactic for sure. And I don't know, in some ways I understand, because you have this oppressed group who very clearly has members, I guess you could say, that are of every class. It's not just like poor weirdos in the woods.
Right.
It's also lords and ladies and people who live in town with good, respectable jobs. Like, it's not this scary other, it is your neighbor. And
Right.
I see the idea of wanting to, expose that, hey, we're not weirdos. This isn't crazy. You can live by witted people and not even know, because we're not beasts.
Yeah.
And yet what it's actually doing is just harming all of those people that are witted and living in society. And it did make me think of how Fitz let us know that old blood people have sort of disdain for anyone with old blood that doesn't live in an old blood community.
Yeah.
And decides to live in towns instead.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if part of this sort of targeting comes from that deep-seated disdain. I know that there's more to it, and we will find out more as we go along. I don't remember off the top of my head all the details of the Piebald's plans and if this part specifically is ever explained, but I think knowing what we know about old blood communities, it may be safe to say that this is a malicious thing against part of the community that they already were ostracized from or felt were safe to ostracize.
Yeah, true.
And so I think that's an important aspect of this as well, that there is sort of that in-group shaming happening and could be why they are being targeted. But we also have Fitz and Chade and their sort of conversation on this, and Fitz isn't handling it super well, in my opinion. He's letting Chade talk and getting information, of course, but he's sort of reeling and he can't quite catch his footing, so to speak, and keeps getting caught off guard with new information. And I thought, really interestingly, he says he has that whole comment about, well, some secrets are my own, hopefully. I'm not going to confirm or deny if I'm witted to Chade, which is crazy to me because obviously Chade knows.
I don't think that's the secret he's talking about. I think he's talking about how Dutiful is his son. Because the conversation is, why would anyone think Prince Dutiful was witted? And Chade says, because you were. And then is silent and looks at him. And Fitz is like, no, I'm not going to confirm or deny anything. I'm going to let him talk of why people think so. And then Chade goes on to say, because you're a Farseer and it's in the Farseer blood, so it must just be a Farseer thing.
Okay.
I think Fitz is protective of like, hey, I'm not... That secret, at least, is my own, that Verity swapped bodies.
Okay, sure. That makes sense. Because I thought it was that he's witted because then when Chade has his outburst after that, one of the first things he says after the outburst is that the piebald also get called the cursed bastards. Whatever. Sorry, I already forgot. The cult of the bastard.
Yeah.
It was a C word. The cult of the bastard.
I agree with you. I think that's what Chade thought the silence was about him not admitting it. Even though Chade is like, duh, you were we came up with this plan to save you because you were dead because you were witted. Like, that's the only way it would work. I know you are. So I think he's kind of like, Fitz, I know. But Fitz is not staying silent about that.
Okay. So Chade is reading it as, I think you're being silent because you won't confirm or deny this is about the wit. And Fitz is like, no, dude.
Or that he's staying silent about something that he might know more about. Because Chade, to me, it seems like he's witted. He must know what's going on in the Old Blood community.
Right.
You know, he must have heard these. Because he keeps asking him, like, you think I'm stupid? Like, do you know more of what's going on? Like, things like that. So I feel like Chade is like digging for like, hey, Fitz, you have to have some sort of connection here, right?
Okay, sure, yeah.
Like, you're my only touchstone that I know is that will talk to me.
I see. Okay, yeah. Well, that makes more sense to me. I'm happy to read it that way.
But Chade is terrified. He kind of sinks into himself after saying, like, I'm sorry, I'm alienating you, and you're the only one who can help me. I am terrified for the boy. Terrified. The accusation was not posted publicly. It was sent in a sealed note. It was not signed at all, not even with the piebald sigil. Do what is right, it said, and no one else ever need know. Ignore this warning, and we will take action of our own. But they didn't say what they wanted of us, not specifically, so what could we do? We didn't ignore it. We simply waited to hear more. And then he is gone. The queen fears many things, but I fear that they'll turn him into what you were, Chade says.
Right.
When Beric and I pulled you back from the death. Like, I can't have him coming back to us a beast.
A beast in a man's body.
Yeah, because he says if he was revealed to be witted and we had him back, I could probably even spin that to be a positive thing or at least ignored.
Right.
He would still be a king, but if he came back a beast and stood before the Duke's eyes, the whole monarchy would fail.
Right. It's just not a good look and not really the aesthetics they're looking for.
And we've been too long without a king.
Yeah.
Right? A foreign-born queen, even though Kettrican's great, and someone who is a bastard, me, cannot hold the Farseer throne. We need a Farseer king, a true-born king.
And that's part of the problem here is that it's just such a tumultuous time. But I do feel really bad for Fitz in this moment because that is such a vulnerable time in his life. That was such a horrible thing that had happened to him. Right. And in this moment where his not child is missing and being threatened, Chade's biggest fear is that he's going to turn out just like Fitz is a little bit heartbreaking to me. Like, I just feel like it's so sad. And this whole portion of conversation where Fitz and Chade are talking about Dutiful kind of hurts my feelings for Fitz. Like, I guess I'm mad at Chade, I should say, because of how he's treating Fitz and also how he is so clearly devoted to and cares so deeply for Dutiful, if only because I feel it's not fair that he didn't feel that way towards Fitz. And then I have to remind myself that we don't know that that's true, that we don't get to see this. There is no adult perspective of Chade doing this about Fitz to anybody else. We only get Fitz's perspective, and he is not a reliable narrator.
We know for a fact he did this for Fitz.
Yeah.
He disobeyed Shrewd for the first time ever for Fitz's favor.
Yeah.
He was like arguing against, that knife thing. And like he stood up for him a lot.
Yes. But I think in this moment, I'm so like in Fitz's point of view and like,
it's easy to forget those things.
It is. And I get why Fitz is the way that he is because I'm over here about to go to bat because Chade sucks. And why does he care so much about Dutiful when he didn't care about Fitz? That's my boy. And then I'm like, oh, hold on. two things can be true. He can care about Dutiful and about Fitz. They're not mutually exclusive. It doesn't mean that he doesn't care about Fitz. And just because he brings up a really touchy subject does not mean that is indicative of him not caring about Fitz. I think if anything, it shows how upset he is that that's the lengths they had to go to.
Yeah.
And then I think too about how something that I don't think is being considered, and maybe it is that maybe the reason Fitz was so feral when he came back was because he had taken so much of a beating. You know, like he was abused so much up until the point of his almost death that when he comes back, he doesn't want to be Fitz anymore. Like that was so traumatic and horrible and heart-wrenching that of course he's going to prefer to be wild than whatever his life has been up until that point. And it's not like the dungeons was the only instance of him being treated horribly because of him being a Fitz. It is just the worst to the point of almost death. And so I think that is something that Chade probably isn't taking into consideration.
But consider Dutiful. There are reasons why he wouldn't want to go back.
Right, but I don't think Dutiful has been treated...
Right, I know.
I don't know how to explain this. I don't think that Dutiful has been abused in the way that Fitz has been abused, and if at all. And so... like, there's a difference between not wanting to be a prince because it's, the shackles of duty, and, like, not wanting to be the bastard because everybody beats you up and wants you dead. So I feel like that isn't the same. To me, in my mind, it feels like, of course, he went feral.
Sure. I'm just saying that there is a reason in the mind for Dutiful not to want to go back. Maybe it's not as strong or whatever as Fitz is. But I truly believe that Chade is scared for a reason, and that it is a valid reason to be scared of, because if he has considered that of why Fitz was so feral and Dutiful is returned in that kind of state, maybe it would be easier to make him into more of a human again. But I still think that he would not want to be there. I still think that Dutiful, if this, in this hypothetical, would have that reason in his head fixated, is not wanting to return to the human life.
Right. I guess in my mind, there needs to be violence associated for it to be that bad. And maybe that is what Chade is thinking, that maybe he is being mistreated violently. And so that is what will happen. I don't know. I don't really know how much he knows of what went down with Fitz. I mean, he has to know what happened in the dungeons, but I mean, from his fake death onward, because I don't think he sees Fitz until later in the cabin that Burek gets for him. And so I don't know how much he knows of what happens or has been told of what went down and why things are the way they are. Maybe he just thinks that's what always happens to witted people. That's just like always a fear that could happen to witted people because he's not witted.
No, he was there when they, when he got returned to his body.
I thought it was just Burek.
No, it was Chade too, because he had the, he was there to help like with the medical stuff.
Oh, okay.
It was both of them, I believe. They both kind of, at least that's in my mind.
Sure.
Recollection. But yeah, either way, that's what Chade is kind of terrified of. And he reverts to just Chade for a while and stands up and has to look away and stare at a tapestry. And they pause for a while. When he speaks up again, he's reverted back to the Queen's advisor. He has kind of reassumed that role and put his armor back on and starts telling facts. And this is about, like, we can't stand before having a beast. Like, the Farseer throne can't withstand that. Ketcherkin and I have kind of navigated through all of these alliances and the political factions for too long. In another 2 years, Prince Dutiful will be prince no more, but take the title of king in waiting. 1 year of that, and I think I could persuade the dukes to recognize him as a full king. Then I think we might feel secure for a time. When King Aod of the Mountains dies, Dutiful inherits his mantle as well. We will have the mountains at our back, and if this marriage alliance Kettricken has negotiated with the Out Islands Hetgerd prospers, we will have friendship in the seas to the north. Hetgerd? An alliance of nobles. They have no kings there, no high ruler. Kebble Rawbread was an anomaly for them. But this Hetgerd is a number of powerful men in it, and one of them, Arkan Bloodblade, has a daughter. Messages have gone back and forth. His daughter and Dutiful seem to be suitable for one another. Is it his daughter? I can't remember.
Well, it says here it's his daughter.
I corrected myself to niece earlier, but I can't remember if it was... Oh, wait. It is Arkan Bloodblade's daughter, but the warrior who is with her is the uncle, I believe.
Sure.
That's what I'm,
okay.
I'm messing up here.
I believe you. I don't know. Spoiler alert, I'm not a huge fan of Ileana for no particular reason. It's not like anything that she does. I just don't like her as a character particularly. And so when I read this, I didn't really care. I felt bad for her that she was being held hostage and all that, but mostly didn't really care. So I don't really remember a ton about her, but that's just a fun spoiler alert for everybody going forward. Maybe I'll like her better now. I don't know. Probably not.
He explains kind of the timeline of this betrothal to Fitz, how at the new moon they're kind of going to come and there's going to be a ceremony recognized. And I fear it is too soon for such an alliance. Burns does not like it, nor Rippin. They would probably profit from the renewed trade, but the wounds are still too fresh. Better, I would think, to wait another 5 years. Let the trade swell slowly, then let Dutiful take up the reins of the Six Duchies, and then propose an alliance. Not with my prince, but with a lesser offering. A daughter of one of the dukes, perhaps a younger son. But that is only my advice. I am not the queen, and the queen has made her will known. She will have peace in her lifetime, she proclaims. I think she attempts too much. To meld the Mountain Kingdom into the Six Duchies as the seventh, and to put an Islander woman on her throne as queen. It is too much, too soon. It was almost as if he had forgotten I was there. He thought aloud before me, with a carelessness that he had never displayed in the years when Shrewd was on the throne. In those years he would never have spoken a word of doubt on any of the king's decisions. I wonder if he regarded our foreign-born queen as more fallible, or if he deemed me now mature enough to hear his misgivings. He took his chair across from me, and again our eyes met.
So, before we get more into it, do you think Chade finds Kettricken more fallible?
I think it's a little bit of both. Not necessarily... It's hard to explain my feelings of what I think Chade feels towards Kettricken. I don't think that he believes she's more infallible or fallible.
Mm-hmm.
I think that his goal has always been the Farseers on the throne and knows that she is not true Farseer. So in his mind, maybe subconsciously, doesn't hold her as high of esteem as the prince would be, because the prince is of that line, you know? It's like, it's my prince, it's the Farseer line. A true-born Farseer has to be on this throne. Okay. I think he just has that kind of full-on obsession with the Farseers on the throne and not just holding the kingdom together, right? And we kind of saw that with Regal a bit too, even though he was acting counter to Regal's machinations, I guess, is still to keep a Farseer on the throne in some way. And I think it's the same with this, where he is going to argue his hardest to make the world and the kingdom the strongest it can be for when a Farseer ascends to the throne.
Right.
And that's not necessarily always what Kettricken thinks. It's like, I need to preserve the Farseer thing.
Right.
So that's my kind of the thoughts that I have about Chade.
Okay. I guess my thought was Chade always thinks he knows best. And so I think this is sort of Fitz is older, and also that Fitz isn't really a threat to the throne. So he can tell Fitz the misgivings.
Yeah.
I think as a child, it would have been too dangerous. Even though he was super fond of Fitz, I think it would have been really dangerous to tell Fitz every thought he had about Shrewd's orders. Like, right. It just would have not been a good idea. But now, I mean, Fitz doesn't have stake in the game truly, and he needs Fitz's help. And also, Fitz likes Kettricken, so it's not like he's gonna,
Right.
take it to heart.
Fitz is Chade's sounding board. He's his boy.
Yeah, exactly.
Now that they're both adults and that Chade is in a very stressful time, not at the top of his faculties as he was when he was a younger man. It's a good thing to talk aloud and get Fitz's reactions to it, I guess. It helps him out. In that moment, cold walked up my spine as I realized what I confronted. Chade was not the man he had been. He had aged, and despite his denials, the keen mind fought to shine past the fluttering curtains of his years. Only the structure of his spy web, built so painstakingly through the years, sustained his power now. Whatever drugs he brewed in his teapot were not quite enough to firm the facade. To realize that was like missing a step on a dark, steep stair. I suddenly grasped just how far and how swiftly we all could fall. So this is where Fitz kind of takes it upon himself to take charge and give a little bit of comfort to Chade. He puts his hand over the top of him and says, "Okay, begin the night before he disappeared and tell me all you know." Very quietly, very gently, just like urging him into what Fitz needs.
Exactly, because Fitz is going to try to help. He knows that his help is needed. I also find it really interesting that we have Chade who is struggling with sort of keeping the sharpness of his mind, and that this isn't a problem later. So we'll have to keep a lookout to see what skill healing can be done to fix that, if that makes sense. Like, if he does in the final trilogy still have that sort of like his mind is starting to fail again, but I feel as though later in this trilogy he like is back up to full capacity because of some weird skill healing that he's trying on himself. So I don't know.
Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye out on his mental well-being.
Yes, but
mental acuity.
Yes, I say that because it's so stark here that like, oh, his like mind is failing him. He is getting really old and time has really affected him.
And yet, to me, it still feels like Hap to Fitz. You know, it's like, oh, in your old years, you'll have nothing to care for, because Chade isn't really displaying anything where he's super fuzzy. All he did really was talk aloud.
Yeah, which like...
And Fitz finally realizes like, oh, wait. So he's putting on a great facade, but he's not exactly how I left him.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard. It's a little bit like unreliable narrator, and maybe he is getting older. I mean, he is old.
He is.
Like
I think he is a little bit older now, and it shows a little bit. And I do really truly believe that the skill does something too, and like helps him out.
Yeah,
and we'll have to pay attention to that. But I just don't think it's as overblown as Fitz kind of makes it in this paragraph.
Yeah, that's fair. It just feels odd, especially because I'm pretty sure he's like 70 to mid 70 to mid 80s, and I feel like he uses his brain a lot, which is like what you're supposed to do to keep your brain active in your older age. Like I don't know. I'm not that age, so I can't speak to how realistic Chade's portrayal is.
So Fitz puts his hand over the top of Chade's and says, "Begin the night before he disappeared. After all these years, I should report to you and let you draw the conclusions." I thought I had affronted him, but then his smile dawned. "Ah, Fitz, thank you. Thank you, boy. After this long while, it is so good to have you back at my side. So good to have someone I can trust. The night before Prince Dutiful vanished, well, let me see then." For a time, his green eyes looked far afield. I feared for a moment that I had sent his mind wandering, but then he suddenly looked back at me, and his glance was keen. We'll go back a bit further than that. We had quarreled that morning, the prince and I. Well, not quarreled exactly. Dutiful is too mannered to quarrel with an elder, but I had lectured him and he had sulked, much as you used to. I declare, sometimes it is a wonder of how much that boy can put me in mind of you. He huffed out a brief sigh. Anyway. Very interesting there, too.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh man, this boy is so much like you, Fitz. Anyway, we had a little confrontation. He came to me for his morning skill lesson, but he could not keep his mind on it. There were circles under his eyes, and I knew he had been out late again with a hunting cat of his. And I warned him sharply that if he could not regulate himself so as to arrive refreshed and ready for his lessons, it could be done for him. The cat could be put out in the stables with the other coursing beasts to assure that my prince would get a good night's sleep every night. That, of course, ill-suited him. He and that cat have been inseparable ever since the beast was given to him. And Fitz is sitting there listening and being like, ooh.
That's not good.
Yeah. But Chade continues on being like, yeah, he doesn't really like defend his beast or anything, but he attacks me, and that's the problem of the tutor and the teacher. He told me that he had no head for the skill and never would, no matter how much sleep he got. I told him not to be ridiculous, that he was a farseer and the skill was in his blood. He had the nerve to tell me that I was the one being ridiculous, for I had to but look in the mirror to see a farseer who had no skill. Chade cleared his throat and sat back in his chair. It took me a moment to realize that he was amused, not annoyed. He can be an insolent pup, he growled, but in his complaint I heard a fondness and a pride in the boy's spirit. It amused me in a different way. A much milder remark from me at that age would have earned me a good rap on the head. The old man had mellowed.
That is such older sibling talk right there. That is like, when I was your age, mom and dad would have punished me, but you get to do whatever you want. Speaking as an older sibling.
And then Fitz also says, well, I hoped that would not ruin him because princes, I thought, needed more discipline than other boys, not less.
Well, of course they do. He got more.
Exactly. And Fitz turned out so well.
Oof.
Then you've begun to teach him the skill. I put no judgment in my voice. I've begun trying, Chade growled, and there was concession in this. I feel like a mole telling an owl about the sun. So he says that he reads the scrolls and he tries the meditations, almost feeling something, but he just can't put it into words for Dutiful. And Fitz is like, yeah, I told you, like, the meditations will get you there, but you need somebody to show you the rest of the way.
Yeah, it can't be learned from the scroll. You have
Shade's
to,
like, yeah, that's why I called for you.
yeah, duh.
So maybe you can teach the prince, but also maybe you can find him.
And then Fitz tries to be the ever-knowing skill user by saying, ugh, Chade, the skill doesn't work that way. And Chade cuts him off to let him know, well, actually, the skill does work that way, and I have a skill scroll that says so.
Yeah, you were just never taught that.
Yeah. I will show it to you. Maybe you can parse it out better than I can explain. But basically, you just have to have a skill connection to somebody, and you can reach out and find them.
I thrust aside my piqued curiosity. I did not want to see the scrolls. Even if the scrolls claim it can be done, you say it happens between two who have been joined by the skill. The prince and I have no such, I think you do. There is a certain tone of voice Chade has that stops one from speaking. It warns that he knows far more than you think he does, and cautions you against telling him lies. It is extremely effective when I was a small boy. It was a bit of a shock to find it was no less effective now that I was a man. I slowly drew breath into my lungs, but before I could ask, he answered me. Certain dreams the prince has recounted to me first woke my suspicions. They started with occasional dreams when he was very small. He dreamed of a wolf bringing down a doe and a man rushing up to cut her throat. In the dream, he was the man, yet he could also see the man. That first dream excited him. For a day and a half he spoke of little else. He told it as if it were something that he had done himself. Dutiful was only 5 at the time. The detail of his dream far exceeded his own experience. And then Chade also goes on to describe another dream that he has. Many years past that, or perhaps it was years before Dutiful spoke to Chade of one. He dreamed of a man fording a river. The water threatened to sweep him away, but at last he managed to cross it. He was too wet and too cold to build a fire to warm himself, but he lay down in the shelter of a fallen tree. A wolf came to lie beside him and warm him. And again the prince told me this dream as something he had done himself. I love it, he told me. It is almost as if there is another life that belongs to me, one that is far away and free of being a prince, a life that belongs to me alone, where I have a friend who is as close as my own skin. It was then I suspected he had other such skill dreams, but had not shared them with me. So Fitz is like, oh boy, so those are real, but I didn't know that we were doing that.
Yeah, it wasn't me reaching out. I didn't do it on purpose.
And now Fitz is like, what else did they learn? I'm going to have to put up my skill walls again.
Yeah, he's sitting there thinking that if that happened with Dutiful, it probably happened with Nettle. And then he's thinking about all those nights with Starling and like, oh God, I hope that didn't happen again where I let my passionate nights out into the world with my skill.
How could I have been so incautious? How many of my secrets had I spilled before those most vulnerable to them? Fitz tries to brush all of that aside while he's musing in the middle of all this, thinking about Nettle. He says to Chade, I often have vivid dreams, and to dream of being a boy in Buckkeep is not so foreign from my own experience, but the important thing here is the cat, Chade. How long has he had it? Do you think he is witted? Is he bonded to the cat? I felt like a liar asking questions when I already knew the answers. He's shuffling through the past 15 years of sharing experiences potentially with Dutiful and Nettle, and Chade finally breaks him from those musings, saying, How would I know if the boy was witted? I never knew you were until you told me. Even then, I didn't know what you were telling me at first. I was suddenly weary, too tired to lie. Whom was I trying to protect with deceit? I knew too well that lies did not shield for long, that in the end they became the largest chinks in any man's armor. I suspect he is, and bonded to the cat, from dreams I've had.
Quick pause there. That's another reason why I thought earlier when Fitz was like, I'm not going to say anything, it was about being witted, because here he's like, now I'm too tired to lie. All right. He's probably witted. But maybe they're two separate things. Maybe it's just...
He was trying to protect Dutiful's
being
witted first. Yeah, I don't know. The first time I really do think it was about the other thing, though, because he's just... Why else would he react that way?
I guess. I don't know. But so I did also want to quick back up, because while he's sitting there mulling over whatever he has shared with his children, he is starting to realize that potentially he has shared dreams with Nettle as well. And that he suddenly is looking at that fever dream that when Nettle is clutching onto Burek in a completely different light. And how could he be so dumb as to ignore that? And I just want to shake him, because what do you mean this is the first time you've realized that was Nettle skilling out to you? How else did he think? Did he just think he was skilling to them and seeing it? He thought he was doing that because he missed them so bad? Is that what I'm missing? Or did he just truly think it was a dream of wishful thinking of them being together and fine?
Well, what he says here is, what had seemed a cherished glimpse into her life, a tiny window on Molly and Burek, was now revealed as her vulnerability before my carelessness. So I think he feels awful about skilling with someone because he recognizes skill connections that only bring headaches and pain. So he's like, this is, and people have only connected with him besides Verity, arguably, to just violate his memories.
Right.
And try to control him. So I think he's like, I was skill connecting with Nettle, who is an infant, and that is awful for her. I feel so bad for inflicting that upon her because she was vulnerable and I was careless.
Okay.
So I think it's more coming from that angle. At least that's how I interpret it.
Okay. Because I'm sitting here reading that going, what do you mean you're just now realizing that was a skill link? What?
Oh, I think he was just grateful that, I got this view, and then realizing that Nettle could probably also connect and remember those things. It's like, maybe they're getting the full connection and it's not good to start him on this addiction path. And
okay, sure.
I don't know. It's just he doesn't have great associations with his magic.
Valid. No. Okay. So that clears that up. But anyway, yes. So he has gone through and he is admitting to Chade that he does think that Dutiful is
witted. Bonded, to the cat.
Right.
Before my eyes, the man aged. I hate irony. It is a manacle that ties our dreams to our fears. I had hoped you had a dream bond with the boy, a tie that would let you use the skill to find him. And indeed you do, but with it you reveal my greatest fear for Dutiful is real. The wit. Oh, Fitz, I wish I could go back and make my fears foolish instead of real. Who gave him the cat? One of the nobles. It was a gift. He receives far too many gifts, while trying to curry favor with him. Kettrican tries to turn aside those of more valuable sort. She worries it will spoil the boy. But it was only a little hunting cat. Yet it may be the gift that spoils him for his life. Who gave it to him? I pressed. I will have to look back in my journals, Chade confessed. He gave me a dark look. You can't expect an old man to have a young man's memory. I do the best I can, Fitz. His reproachful look spoke volumes. If I had returned to Buckkeep, resumed my tasks at his side, I would now know these vital answers. The thought brought a new question to my mind. Where is your new apprentice in all this? After a moment, Chade says, not ready for such tasks as these. Is he perhaps recovering from a lightning strike from a clear sky, one that exploded an unused storage shed? He blinked but kept control of his face. Even his voice remained steady as he ignored my thrust. No, Fitzchivalry, this task belongs to you. Only you have the unique abilities needed. So they finally get to the heart of it. Chade ignores the jab at his
his experiment gone wrong.
Exactly. Because we know it's the powder that blew up when he visited Fitz's hut that got him onto this track.
Which also, just pause for a moment. Didn't he tell Fitz that his apprentice is Nettle? Or not Nettle, sorry, Rosemary?
No.
Oh, he doesn't know. We talked about it because we know. Okay. Never mind then. I was like...
And that's why Fitz keeps saying he, because he assumes it's going to be another boy.
Right. Okay, makes sense.
And Chade's like, no, that one is...
No.
So finally they get to it. What exactly do you want of me? Fitz asks. Find the prince. Return him to us discreetly, and Eda save us unharmed. And do it while my excuses for his absences are still believable. Get him home safely to us before the Out Islander delegation arrives to formalize the betrothal to their princess. How soon is that? I don't know. Depends on the winds and the waves and the strength of their oarsmen. Eventually, he says a number after describing a whole thing of who knows why, is that it's going to be about 16 days. And Fitz is like, 16 days? That should be okay. And Chade's like, yeah, if he's just ran away. But if he got taken, it's barely going to be enough.
Yeah, it's going to be a tight squeeze to get everything done.
Mm-hmm. When I looked up, my old mentor was still regarding me hopefully, trusting me to see a solution that eluded him. I wanted to flee. I wanted never to have known any of this. I took a steadying breath. Then I ordered his mind as he had once disciplined mine. I need information, I announced. Don't assume I know anything about the situation, because it is likely that I don't. I need to know, first of all, who gave him the cat, and how that person feels about the wit, and the prince's betrothal. Expand the circle from there. Who rivals the gift giver? Who allies with him? Who at court most strongly persecutes those with the wit? Who most directly opposes the prince's betrothal? Who supports it? Which nobles have most recently been accused of having the wit in their families? Who could have helped Dutiful run if run he did? If he was taken, who had the opportunity? Who knew his midnight habits? Each question I formulated seemed to beget yet another. Yet in the face of that volley, Chade seemed to grow steadier. These were questions he could answer, and his ability to answer them strengthened his belief that together we might prevail. I paused for breath. And I still need to report to you the events of those days. However, you seem to be forgetting that the skill might save us hours of talk. Let me show you the scrolls, and see if they make more sense to you than they do to me. I looked around me, but he shook his head. I do not bring the prince here. I keep the skill scrolls in Verity's tower. It's well guarded. And Fitz is like, well, okay. How do I get there if it's well guarded? And Shade's like, duh, there are passages.
Yeah, because I have a passage directly there. What?
Yeah.
Finish eating, then I'll show it to you. Which is so funny. Fitz, you're literally in a secret room in the middle of the castle, and you got there via secret passageways you never went down when you were a kid.
You think Chade would let the scrolls out of his sight, even if they're guarded? Come on.
Come on, Fitz.
Very interesting chapter. I love this chapter, though, because I love Chade as a character. He's just so interesting with his different motivations and how he reacts to things.
That's fair. I'm okay with this chapter. I think it's good. It's the start of something happening. We're no longer in the lull, which was nice, but now I'm over it. So this comes at a perfect time to get us going and starting the adventure again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Soon we get to meet Laurel, Huntswoman, and all of the Brasingas.
Yeah. It'll be fun. It's a fun little here's what's going on chapter.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I read a lot this chapter, though.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I would agree.
I just like the conversation.
Yeah.
All the questions that they ask. It does show that Fitz isn't as stupid as we always say he is.
Yeah, he
knows what he needs to know.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I'll give you that.
You look kind of skeptical about that, but that's a conversation.
His moments. He has his moments where I'm like, maybe he's not this incompetent boy. Yeah, I'm much like Chade in that, where occasionally Fitz shines through and I go, maybe he's not an incompetent young boy.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in this week. If you have thoughts on the chapter, please let us know at isfitzhappy@gmail.com. Or you can message us or comment on any of our posts on social media. Or it is Fitzhappy at Facebook, on Threads, on Blue Sky, on Instagram, YouTube, and Reddit. So leave us a message. Let us know what you got going on. Thank you.
All right, now we get to be at our favorite time. That was such a weird intro. I don't know. We're trying new things every day, you know? We're leaving it in.
And English is one of those things.
I'm trying English for the first time today. Anyway, this is the part of the show where we talk about what you have brought to our attention. And we're going to first start with a comment we got on Spotify.
Yeah, this is from Tamara. Thank you for writing in. And the conversation is surrounding last episode 258, chapter 10. And that's our discussion on the Fool not really talking about Clarice. I kind of brought up that he mentioned that Clarice kind of cherished him and all those kinds of things. It was just like, it wasn't quite as bad in his descriptors as we learn it was later on.
Right.
And Tamara thinks that maybe it's because the last trilogy hadn't been planned out yet, because we know that Robin Hobb doesn't plan these books really.
Right.
I mean, I don't know her exact writing process, but as far as I'm aware, she kind of has scenarios and then the characters write themselves out, basically. Like she just says, oh, what would the characters do in this situation kind of thing.
Right.
So maybe she had the idea for Clarice and the servants, but Tamara thinks that maybe it was because this was just written beforehand and it needs to be expanded later.
Yeah.
Or it needed to be expanded later.
Which absolutely could be the case.
Yeah.
So
I
good
feel that's
point.
the case for some things. For
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And I don't think we often talk about that aspect. So thank you, Tamara, for bringing that up. And then we also got an email from Degenhart. And that email is to do with, first of all, Night Eyes needing to get his own stand-up career because he is very funny, which I agree. And then secondly, they wrote in saying, I know Hobb is a very convinced dyed-in-the-wool American capitalist, much to my chagrin, but I struggle to find in-universe reason for Fitz to have such transactional convictions. Do you have any ideas about that?
I'm wondering if Degenhart, are you talking about like his going to the market or his like need for money for Hap? I'm not sure what this discussion this was branching off of, actually. Do you remember, Emma?
Not particularly. I guess maybe thinking about the loan and what he'll have to give his friends for the money.
True, yeah.
And if it's worth it, and just sort of the like, embarrassment of begging beloved for money.
I don't think Fitz thinks of himself as such like, oh, I'm, business minded and we need to outcompete her.
Gotta get that coin.
Exactly. I think it's more of just the society he was raised in. And since Robin Hobb wrote The Six Duchies as kind of a capitalist society, even if it's not quite in that modern economic sense, they are barbaric in this world.
They don't even have glass.
Right. I feel like Fitz is used to kind of exchanging like, hey, I need to do something like some hard work in order to get money, and I need to, spend that money to get some goods back. I think that's just how he was raised.
Yeah. I mean, I would almost go as far as to say that I think that Fitz lends himself to be more transactional in his interactions with friends and loved ones because he has such a lack of self-worth.
Yeah.
Like, if he's not doing something for them, they won't love him anymore, sort of vibe. And I don't think that's true or good to think, but I think that potentially just the sort of trauma and general life he has lived.
Or the other way around, even, where obviously they won't do anything for him for free. He has to do stuff in response. Like, he has to, like, he can't just ask for money. And Chade later is angry at him, like, what, did you think that I wouldn't help Hap?
Yeah.
Unless you helped me? Like, no, I would have done that if you just asked.
Yeah. So I think it's less of him like wholeheartedly believing that as a general rule, and more of he just thinks so little of himself that he thinks that if he's not providing a good, he does not deserve love. And so that kind of bleeds into everything else.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So yeah, that would be my answer to that question. Hopefully that is the right area we're talking about. So thank you, Dagenhart, for writing in. And then also shout out to Jess, who wrote in to let us know that they have been listening to our episodes over the bones of a sauropod in the outback of Queensland, Australia, which is pretty cool. And love to hear it. Love that we have a listener that works with dinosaur bones. Very cool.
Yeah. Awesome.
So thank you, Jess. And we also have quite a few questions from our listener, Kristen, on Facebook. And these are, I don't know if I know some of the answers. The first one is Night Eyes huge, or is the Fool small? Because the Fool can stand and rest his hand on the wolf's back.
And I always thought that wolves were just tall. They're just like way bigger than we think.
Yeah. I think I highly recommend anyone who hasn't done this ever / in a while just to Google a picture of a wolf next to a human, because they look by themselves like they'd be a husky size, and then you see them next to a human and they're like Great Dane size. So it is very confusing to my mind personally. But I do believe they're pretty big. Not that doesn't mean that Fool is not short.
Apparently, wolves, this is just a quick Google, are about 2.5 to almost 3 feet tall at the shoulder when they're just on 4 legs. So that's pretty tall.
That's pretty tall.
If you're 6 foot, that's your waist.
That's the size of a toddler. No, probably bigger than a toddler, like an elementary school kid, primary school kid for our Australians out there.
I always pictured Lord Golden and the Fool and Beloved as kind of taller and lanky-ish, but I don't know if that's actually true.
I feel like Amber is tall for a woman, is what is said about her often.
So maybe like
average dude,
5'9", 5'10" ish,
yeah, like
kind of thing.
Doesn't stand out amongst a crowd of dudes, but among women, when they present as a woman, is like noticeably tall. Yeah, is what I thought. Also, I don't know if it's just because people in Big Town are short, so who knows?
Yeah,
because also Jack is like taller than Amber, right? I feel like, but then also Jack in my mind is like huge barbarian woman, like. I'm thinking like Yasha from Critical Role, if anybody knows who that is. But like,
that's funny.
Just like I don't think
because she's
I
from
think
the Six
an,
Duchies.
yeah.
She's a barbarian.
She's an outlier. Although I don't know, Kettricken is also described as tall, so
Yeah.
I feel like Kettricken and the Fool are the same height. So I think Fool is like 5'9", 5'10".
Okay. Yeah. But yeah, that would easily be waist height then for wolves.
Yeah.
Wolves are pretty big.
Yeah. So that's a good question. Next question, which I should know the answer to this as someone who grew up with chickens, but I do not. And the question is, what constitute a flock of chickens? I would have said 10 to 12, and it turns out there are, I believe, 6 chickens. Is that half a flock or a small flock?
Actually, I just Googled this because I wanted an answer to this rather than just speculation.
Uh-huh.
And according to the Google AI, which isn't always trustworthy, but also a Reddit thread and a site called backyardchickens.com, 3 is the lowest number that works well to have flock dynamics. Can't have 1, can't have 2, but 3 works. And then someone in the Reddit comment said, like, 5 is our happy place for my chickens.
Yeah,
so.
Chickens are like really territorial and they're mean. Yeah. They're just mini dinosaurs and I hate them. No hate to anybody who likes having chickens or likes their chickens. I grew up having to take care of chickens and I hated it. So like that's mostly where it stems from. Farm chores suck, especially when you're like 12. So
So yeah, it's actually 3, and he does have a flock of chickens with 6. So I think you are correct there that he has 6 of them.
Great question though. Also, so as we all know, Fitz lives on what he calls a lane.
Yeah.
So Kristen is asking, do you think the lane is a path that actually goes somewhere, or does it just lead to the cottage? It's wide enough and long enough to get up to speed on a horse. Did Jenna have to deviate to visit, or is it more of how we would call a driveway is the main access to an often single dwelling? I feel as though I'm picturing it more as more or less a driveway.
Yeah.
If only because I don't think it goes to anywhere else. Like it seems like it did it one time.
I thought that this, like his lane would be like a driveway down to the road, and the road would, pass through Forge and
right
go all the way around. So I thought this lane was just basically, like you said, a driveway.
Yeah, in my mind, it is really wide though. I mean, obviously we don't get like a ton of descriptors of where it goes or how anything works in that sense, like to that degree. But it's not unheard of for strangers to go down this way. Right. So it must look enough like a road that people are willing to accidentally go down it.
Yeah, I don't think it's just like a walking trail. I think it's like a meter / a yard wide,
Probably a little bit more than that.
You think so?
Yeah, yard's not like super wide. Like
I don't think cars.
I don't think a tinker would like see a yard path, like a yard length of path and be like, or a meter length of path and be like, yeah, I'm going to go down that way and see what it is. I think it'd have to be like 6 yards.
That's huge.
Yeah, that's why, because if you have a cart pulling, why would you go off on a little tiny like horse trail? You would not. It has to be big enough for a cart, or else carts would not go down that way ever.
6 yards or 6 meters. No way. At most, I would say 2.
I'm holding out.
No, that is a foot.
No.
That is close to a foot.
I'm holding out my hand measurements. We'll fight about this in our Instagram later.
I am 2 yards tall.
No, you're not.
A yard is 3 feet.
Okay, well, so maybe not
and a meter
6
is
yards.
3 feet, 3 inches, I think, give or take.
Well, so maybe 3.
2.
3.
2 yards at most.
I still say 3.
2 meters at most.
No, I don't think that's enough. I still don't think that's enough.
For a cart, I think so.
Okay, whatever.
Your measurements, I don't know.
I'm really eyeballing, and I have never needed to measure anything in my life, so you can assume how good my eyeballing is.
Just for everybody listening in, she held her hands apart about 1.5 feet and said, "This is a yard."
So it's like a Subway sandwich and a half.
That is a good measurement.
That's how I know that's why I knew this was too short. And so I like did bigger than that.
Did you know that a foot long is actually 11 inches? And they were sued over that. And
False
they said it's
advertising.
Just, and they said it was just advertising name and it wasn't actually the measurement.
Fake. Anyway, back on track. Finally, we have a question about the carving, also from Kristen. What happened to them? Imagine if the Fool became famous and the carvings did as well. I would love to have some of them. Probably not the water barrel ones, though. I would also love to have the carvings.
True.
I think it'd be so fun to have my whole house carved in wood with little creatures peeking out of leaves and vines.
Mm-hmm.
So fun.
But also, I'm pretty sure the cottage gets like ransacked later.
Yeah, I think it may be destroyed, unfortunately.
Because Fitz goes back to, because he knows he's going to stay in Buckkeep for a while. So he goes back to grab like the writings that he just kind of like left out.
Yeah.
That detailed who he was.
Yeah.
And I think it was kind of ransacked. So I don't know what happens to the carvings, but I know like no one really goes to live there anymore.
Yeah, it's not.
Somebody in the future is going to find an abandoned cottage and be like, wow.
This place is sick.
Yeah.
Although dusting in between those little crevices would be a nightmare. So maybe I don't want that in my kitchen.
Carved on top of the table.
Yeah. Ooh, I don't know. Well, anyway, thank you, Kristen, for the interesting questions.
Yeah.
We don't get a ton of those kinds of questions, so it's fun to get to speculate on things like that. And thank you to everyone who wrote in. We always love hearing from you guys, and we can't wait to hear what you have to say next week.